All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll go through the general overview. And I know there was a question from one of the professors regarding being able to export the coded material.
Uh, okay,
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay, and I just didn't know if you had if they had made you aware of that question or if you knew anything about it.
No, but I'll definitely take notes and pass it on.
Not a problem at all. Thank you. Well, let me give you kind of a general overview. And the one thing I do like to let people know is not only do I work for QSR, but I actually came to NVivo when I was a graduate student working on my dissertation. So I started out using the product long before I ever stepped into some of the other roles. And just to contextualize it a little bit, when you think about qualitative research, you think about the data dilemma. That qualitative research can generate a lot of data, and you want to, as a researcher, be able to manage and analyze that data in a way that's thorough, that's transparent, and also in this day and age transportable. And that's where NVivo comes in as a tool to help you work towards those goals. In qualitative research, there are a number of different methodologies, core pieces that cut across these methodologies, from the process of being able to identify your research question or area of interest, looking at sources, identifying the information you need to pull from those sources, interacting with your project data, exploring or interrogating your project data, organizing results, and being able to share those results. NVivo has capabilities that can help with the core of this process. If you are working with more of a mixed methods methodology, NVivo does have tools that can be of use. For example, the ability to import or export from Excel text and database files, to look at open-ended and fixed response questions, or look at within and between group analysis of coding. There's also text analysis tools for people working in teams. There is a coding comparison query. Among the options are to generate a kappa coefficient for inter-rater reliability between two coders or two groups of coders, as well as cluster analysis of word and coding similarity. And one of the things that I like to mention is it's not just for research unstructured non-numeric data. NVivo has tools that can be of assistance. For example, on a personal note, I used it for the literature review that I did as part of my dissertation work. The one thing I also wish I had had it for was when I was going through my doctoral coursework, if I had kept my readings and my papers and everything organized inside of NVivo, when I got to preparing for my comprehensive exams, it really would have been of added benefit because everything would be organized and categorized and easily drawn out. But other people have been using it for keeping up to date with their professional literature or their coursework. Some people have been gathering together information for grant proposals. Of course, the literature review and the data analysis, helping you with your writing and publication process. And also very helpful is the fact that once you've collected this data and you've organized it, in one study you may be looking at it uh, from one perspective. Well, later on, you could go back to that same data and approach it from a different perspective or a different question. But once you've created that NVivo project, that data is all organized and available. Right now it is stored, it creates a project file initially stored on your computer, but one file that can be copied to, say, stored in the cloud if you wish, in,
Hmm.
say, a Dropbox folder, or on a server, or even just a thumb drive.
I see.
Yep. And then when you're ready to work with it, if you're working with a standalone NVivo, you simply can bring the project back onto you into your computer and work with it. If you do have people who are working in teams and it's maybe a larger size team, there is an add-on called NVivo Server that would allow teams of people to access the same project stored on a server. If you're using the standalone NVivo, which is the basis for everything that you do, then if a project is on the server, you simply download it to your computer to work on it.
Okay.
Is show a little bit of NVivo 10 in action within the software itself, and then I'll come back in and I'll share some screenshots of further tools that you can use that are built into NVivo. So let me go ahead here and swap over to NVivo itself. Today I'm using NVivo 10 with Service Pack 5 installed, the latest Service Pack. This is, of course, the welcome screen. If I want to begin a new project, it's really quite simple. I can click on where it says New Project, give my project a title. I'll call this my demo project, and I'll just tack on today's date, and I'll click OK. And what NVivo does is it creates a project file on your computer. So all of the information that you bring into your project is stored in that file. The work that you do, the majority of it can be stored in that file as well. And that way, if you need to make a copy of your project, be it for backup or to share with colleagues, it's very easy to do because everything is right there.
And that's a single file or a directory?
It's a single file.
Okay, great.
Yep. And right now in the PC version that we have, which is the full NVivo 10, the workspace was modeled after Outlook. So moving around has a familiarity for people who've used Outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you bring into your project comes into the internals folder. What NVivo does, for example, if I'm bringing in some interview transcripts in a moment, NVivo will make a copy of those transcripts and put the copy inside of the project. The originals will be safely stored outside of the project in their original folder. And that way, if you accidentally delete something while you're working with it in the project, your original is not negatively impacted.
Got it.
So let me go ahead. I'm going to create a subfolder here because I can create a subfolder structure to help me keep these pieces organized. Some people create it based on the type of data they're working with. Some people it may be based individuals they're working with or organizations, whatever fits the user style. I'll go into the interviews folder here. I can right click and use the import option. And if I'm importing documents, these would be .doc, .docx, so any of the Word files, text or rich text files all come in through this path. You can bring in PDFs. They do come in their PDF format. They just have their own path to follow coming in. So in this example, I'll work with some text-based documents. Every time you're bringing something in, you have a dialog box. You start out first by browsing out to wherever it's stored. And I have some sample project items here. I'll bring in some interviews. I can bring in multiple documents at one time. So I can choose a number of different pieces here. Go ahead and click Open and OK. And NVivo is now in the process of making those copies for me. Once they're inside of my project file, I can double click and open up any of the sources that I've brought in. I can have multiple sources open and be able to move between them using a tab structure. When I'm ready to work with the information or the data that I have, with NVivo you use something called a node. And you can think of a node as a bin. It's a place where on one level I could go through my data, and when I come across pieces of interest that may either intrigue me if I'm using a very emergent type of methodology, or let me just change my color scheme here. I'll be right, there we go. Using, maybe I've done a literature review and I have some specific topics that I'm looking for, I can create the nodes ahead of time and take and collect pieces of data that fit certain topics
Okay.
together in the nodes.
Mm-hmm. Now, just a quick question about importing like a Word file. If it had, how will it handle advanced formatting or embedded graphics?
It will bring the embedded graphics in, and as you see here, this had some of the advanced formatting going on. So with the Word files, it will go ahead and bring those pieces in. What it will not bring in are comments. So if you will not come into NVivo.
Okay.
And depending on how the person is choosing to approach their methodology here, some people, when they go to create these nodes, will simply start looking at their data, and when they find something of interest, they'll select that piece of data, and they can go ahead right from here and code that selection and create the node at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just call this Family Connections. And that way, what NVivo does is it pulls those pieces of data into the node, and it will organize them by source. So that way, if they have multiple sources that are being used, when they open up the node, they'll be able to see all of the data collected from a given source around that topic. And they'll be able to scroll down and see how that topic manifested itself over multiple data sources.
Now, what does that percentage represent?
The percentage is looking at if you think about how much data has been coded thus far, it gives you a percentage of the entire source. So this is representing less than 1% of Barbara's whole interview.
I see.
And it's calculated with the text-based data, it's calculated on by characters.
Mm-hmm.
A particular piece, if I go back and a little bit later, I come across another piece of data, I can drag and drop it up to an existing node, and it will be added in sequence under the correct source, and adjustments will be made in the overall percentages, and as well as I'll have the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to create a node ahead of time, I certainly can do that. I could create a node perhaps called Shared Experiences. This would be great for people who are doing evaluation or who have done a literature review so that they have certain topics in mind. I can go ahead and choose data and be able to drag and drop it.
I'm sorry. I think you may have just showed this, but from one of those nodes, I can click and be taken to the part of the file where that text is from.
Absolutely. So if I come right into the node, if I use this title here, this divider, it also acts as a link.
Mm-hmm.
and it
Oh,
will bring
perfect.
me right back in. The
Okay.
other way that I can also look at where my coding is, under the View menu, I also have something called Coding Stripes. And if I'll do Nodes Recently Coding, and over here on the right, I can start to see where I have certain topics that I've coded for. And if
Can
I
you,
want to turn highlighting on or off, I can do that right here too. But please go ahead.
so that little graph that you have on the right, is it possible to print that?
It is. If you're looking at this particular view in the screen, if you simply right-click and you print, you can print what you see on the screen, including coding stripes, and print on the same page.
Okay, great.
Yep. Also, if you have the stripes open, you can left-click on a stripe, and it will highlight any of the data in that source that's been coded to that particular node.
Mhm.
The other thing, too, that sometimes people are asking about are a couple of things. One is, can I code data to more than one node? And the answer is yes. So that I can put it in multiple nodes depending on how I'm approaching the coding process. The other thing you can do is you can also create hierarchical structures with the nodes. So for example, if I create a node here, maybe I look at these two community building. I can create a node for community building, and then I can select and drag and drop those nodes to start to create a hierarchical structure.
Mhm.
And you can have up to 9 levels in that structure. Depending on your needs, if you want to take the data that is in these subnodes, or what NVivo refers to as child nodes, you can go ahead to the node above them, and you can aggregate the coding from child nodes. So it will pull all of the data from the child nodes and pull it up into the top level or parent node if you wish.
Mhm.
A couple of other things that people will often find helpful, especially with text-based data. A couple of the queries that we have, one is a word frequency query. This will allow you to find out the most frequently used words, and it could be across all your text-based sources, selected sources if you wish, or if you have done coding, it will also allow you to find the most frequently used words in a given node.
Mhm.
In this case, I'll just take a look at what my top 200 words were across all of my sources. I'll go ahead and run this, and NVivo provides me with a list of those pieces. There's a number of ways I can view this. One of which that's been quite popular is the word cloud, so that I can take those words and create more of a visualization.
Mhm.
Uh, and there are multiple ways that I can show this. Any of the visualizations, such as this one, if you wish to be able to use those in presentations and such, you simply have to right-click and export,
Okay.
and then you could drop it into a PowerPoint or Word document, etc. The other thing, too, that's nice about this is if you want to have some words not be counted, we do have a stop words list that you can add words to. One way that I can add words to it would be to select the words from this list and simply add them to the stop words list.
If you wanted to search for a phrase, would you need to code that phrase first?
If you wanted to search for a phrase, what you would most likely do is go over to the text search query, because that one would allow you to put a phrase in.
Okay.
So I could use my uh, quotation marks and putting, say, commercial fishing,
Mhm.
and when I run it, I can see in this case it shows me slightly differently, but the sources that it was found. And then actually in the reference view, I also get little snippets
Mhm.
so that I can review that. And depending on your needs, that same one, the text search query, is one where if I put in, say, the word fish, I can ask NVivo to search for the exact word, of course, or stemmed words, so other. It is a closed thesaurus, so at this point you cannot change the synonyms, but it is rather robust.
Mhm.
So I do have the synonyms, and then I can try to focus it a little bit more with such things as specializations or generalizations.
Is there any way to see that list, or it's hidden?
It's hidden at this point in time.
Okay.
So in this case, just as an example, I'm going to use specializations. I just want to preview, and I don't want to spread the coding just yet, because I want to share with you a tool that's available in this particular setup. So when I run this, it of course shows me all of the places where it found fish or some form of it. I do have the reference view so that I can see I have words like fishing and angle and shrimp and trawling that have been found for me. But there is a feature when you preview it and you don't spread the coding called the word tree.
Mhm.
And the word tree, basically, it starts out in this case with the most frequently used form of the word, and shows you initially the 5 words leading into and coming out of that particular word across all of the sources you included.
Mhm.
This you can right click and you can export this if you'd like to use it in a presentation. You can also right click on words on either side of it, such as industry here, and run another text search query right from here. And then it goes through and it finds the term fishing industry. When you do create this, as I said, I can see more than one word because I did ask it to do so. I can increase or decrease the number of words coming into or coming out of.
Mhm.
And if I wish to save it, I have a couple of options. Under the query options, I can either store the query results. That will store all of those snippets that I found. It will not store the word tree. That's why you would want to export the word tree if you want to use it later on. Um, in this case, though, when I previewed it, what back up one moment. I asked it not to spread the coding. I said spread coding to none. So right now it is only coded a single word. So often what I'll do if I want to be able to code a little bit more, have a little bit more context, I'll bring back the last run query and I'll make the change here to save the results as a new node. And I'll put it in my nodes folder. I'll just refer to it as fish text search query. And this time I'll have it spread the coding to a narrow context so that you can, it will find the word, code the word, and then code 5 words on either side as well automatically. And the reason I might do this, so I'll go ahead and I'll run this. When I do save it as a node, I don't get access to the word tree. Uh, but I can come in And when I take a look at some of these, if I find that there is a word that's not being used in the way that I meant, what I can do is I can just, here in the node, I can just quickly uncode it
Okay.
and pull it right out. I can also, what some people will do is, as we talked about earlier, I can use this link to go back into Barbara's interview here, and now I could adjust my coding to better represent the main idea that I was looking at, and I can code that selection at the fish text search query. So I have a lot of different ways that I can start data that I have here. As for the professor who sent the question ahead of time about exporting a node, probably the one of the easiest ways to do that is to go to the nodes section. And when you see the list of nodes that you've created thus far, if you right click on any one of them, you can export, and you can export the node.
Okay.
If they're looking to export it to a Word file, what they'll want to do under export is to choose the reference view.
Okay.
And then I'll just quickly have it open so that you'll have a sense in case they ask you. Now I have a Word document that tells me the sources that it came from, and the references, gives me a list of the references.
Got
So
it.
I could then cut and paste or work around depending on how I wanted to interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece that also that might be useful just to know, if you have people who wish to share a node with a colleague that doesn't have NVivo, under the export options, if you export the entire content, it will actually create an HTML file for you, and then that file could be shared with the colleague so that they could just simply use their web browser to open it up. And that's especially helpful if they have audio video material that they've been coding on.
Oh, so it'll pull in those files?
Yes, it will. What it will do is it'll take the snippets that you've placed inside of the nodes, and it will create those snippets inside of the HTML file so that they would be able to view it inside of their browser software.
Do you know offhand, is that creating uh, video and audio files? Is it using HTML5? How is the HTML file accessing those media clips? Is it just the originals?
I was going to say it's not the originals because it is making a copy of it. Actually, let me swap here for just one moment because that's honestly a great question, and off the top of my head, I do not fully know the answer to that. But let me
Okay.
just do one quick thing here. I'm just open up one coded. Go to the more mature project here and zip into the nodes, and we'll talk about. Let me see what's in my sample node here. Typically, I put in some. Yep, I did some video. So basically, if I have a sample node and I export it, and I'll export this out to HTML and I'll open it up when it comes out. But I do want to put it on my desktop. I will need to get into the file in just a moment. And send that out.
Through your list, is there any way to identify that a particular node has media content, or you would just have to know?
You honestly would have to know. Right now, there's nothing in the list that will show you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just to give you a sense, of course, now I don't have my plugin.
Okay, but I
Uh,
see. I understand the job looking at it.
yep, and let me open up the file so I can show you how it has been saved here. So a sample node, what it does is it gives you a sample node and the icon for it, and so there is the
So it looks like a lot. It looks a lot like when you export from Word to HTML.
right. So it sends it out as a Windows media file.
Hmm.
Snippet is the piece that is there and saved. One of the things, because it's a Windows media file, if anybody has audio or video that they want to drop into a PowerPoint, exporting the whole piece like this, you're then able to import this snippet into a PowerPoint slide.
Good.
Okay. Let me just show you. I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint for a minute because there's again a whole bunch of other types of data, but that gives you the sense of how you interact with data inside of your project. Um,
Hmm.
as I said, you can bring in PDFs, and if they have readable text, you can code the text. You can also select a section or region of a PDF. So if there is a graph, a chart, a table, a diagram that you'd also like to visually have inside the node, you can select that region and do just that. You can also work with images from being able to bring in your JPEGs, bitmap. Um, I want to say the PNG will now come in. So that you could select a section of a photograph and code it if you wish, or there's also a built-in photo log so that you could select a region and create notes about that region.
Does
Be it, yep.
I'm sorry. Does NVivo have access to any of the metadata built into the photo, or you would just have to write that as you're importing it?
At this point with the photo, I believe you would have to write it as you. Um, I just have a piece here. Repeating water uses. What I wanted to see is, I think though, if I do picture properties and I do um, the picture, so it does. I
Oh, great,
stand corrected. It does.
great.
Okay, that's good. I like it when I'm corrected for underselling instead of overselling. Um, all right. The other thing too I like to mention with this, if anybody's working with handwritten data, these may be history professors or English professors. You can scan your handwritten piece and go ahead and be able to take and highlight regions, write the text over in the photo log, and then you can access it electronically with minutes ago.
Hmm.
So it gives you the best of both worlds. And you can bring in audio video data. There are a number of different formats that are available. And what you can do is you can work with or without a transcript because you can code directly on the audio or the video file.
Now, I guess a similar question to the metadata. Is it possible to upload a transcript file, or you'd have to code it as you're importing it?
You certainly can upload a transcript file.
Okay.
So if I bring in the video first and then maybe I sent the transcript out to be done, when it comes back to me, I can upload it into the video file area here.
So it would note the time code, or would it?
It, if it would have to be it would have to be transcribed with with the time codes.
Okay.
Couple things just in case people are interested. QSR is teamed with a company called Transcribe Me. So if people send out their transcription to be done fee-based, there's now an option there so that you can send it out from within your project. And once it's done, and you can bring it right back in, and it will be formatted for your NVivo project.
Okay.
The other thing too is if you just want to transcribe specific sections, you can go ahead and highlight a section, and just like on the picture, if I right click, I can insert a row over here and maybe just transcribe or write notes about a particular section if I don't need the whole thing.
Going back to the you, like when you're exporting to HTML, it creates Windows Media Video. Are there limitations on what NVivo can import?
There is with the video. It's a pretty a fairly extensive list. Let me just swap back for a moment. Um, So with the videos, again, the MPG, MPEG, MPE, MP4, AVI, WMV.
Oh,
So
good,
there's
good.
quite a long list. The audio is much shorter.
Hmm.
That's the MP3, M4A, WMA, and WAV files.
Yeah, that covers it though.
hmm Um, Let me swap back here. If people are working with surveys, for example, if you have your survey data in the format of an Excel spreadsheet, you can import that in as a data set import. You can also take the columns and decide whether you want them to be codable so that you would be able to code the data that is in that particular column. It comes in as text-based data, or if you may want to use it as attributes or demographic type data, you can bring it in as a classifying column so
Hmm.
that you can actually set up classifications, and you could take and create, for example, a node for each person who did the survey, put their codable text into their node, and then you can attach the attributes or the classifying data to it so that later on when you were using maybe a coding query after you've done some of the coding, you could say, what did my female participant say about a certain topic?
Hmm.
If you have anyone who's using SurveyMonkey, QSR has partnered with SurveyMonkey so that you can actually access your SurveyMonkey account right from within the project. So you don't have to export it as an Excel spreadsheet. You can bring either the whole survey right into your NVivo project, or you can ask it to choose a random sampling if you want to do a little bit of pre-work with it.
Great.
Um, with an add-on that comes with NVivo 10 called InCapture. At one level, at its lowest level, it will allow you to capture a web page, and the add-on goes into either Internet Explorer or Google Chrome. Capture it as a web page so that when I import from InCapture, it comes into my NVivo project in the format of a PDF. And I can code the text, I can select regions. I can also use the links. The links themselves remain live. So as long as I have access to the web, I can go from a PDF web page in my project out to the web to the page that links to it.
Hmm.
If I'm working with social media, and in particular Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, not only can I capture it as a PDF, but I also have the ability to ask it to capture as a data set. And what that will do is it will capture the tweets or the posts, and it will take any of the publicly available metadata and bring that in as classifying. So
Now,
in this, in this example, not only do I have the tweets, but I've got username, time it was posted, if it's a retweet,
Hmm.
hashtags, and if they've reported their location, NVivo will try to generate coordinates from the self-reported location, and through conjunction with MapQuest, actually generate a map to show you where in this case, the tweets, where the postings are coming from.
Now, is that in order to uh, retrieve all this information? Is that something you basically run a job, or is it like an RSS where it's being pulled in automatically over time?
It would be more like running the job as opposed
Okay.
to the RSS.
Hmm. And the
Because when
yeah.
you're using this in the data set, though, there is a checkbox so that you can grab what's there and ask it not to bring in the duplicates when you bring it in.
Hmm. And the MapQuest map, is that something that could be accessible online, or it's stored locally?
What it does is it accesses MapQuest right from within the project. If you'd like to keep it, you right-click and you export it so that you can keep a local copy of it.
Okay.
And while it's live, before you export it, while it's live, if you double click on any of the virtual map pins, they will actually open up and show you the tweets or the pieces from that particular location.
Hmm.
The other thing that it can do within Capture, if there is a publicly available YouTube video, it can link with a YouTube video so that you can access it, you can watch it inside of your project. You can code, and as long as the video is available, you'd be able to have access to what you've coded on the video. But you can also take notes, and the notes would be still available even after the video may have been taken down.
Hmm.
A couple of other things. When we talked about queries earlier, I modeled a couple of the text-based queries, but there's also three main ones that can work with the coding that you've done. One being the coding query itself. And this is where I can put together a criteria and ask NVivo to go back through my data and find all of the data that I've coded that matches that criteria. In this example, if I were looking at maybe quality and real estate development, I could ask NVivo to locate for me all of the data that I've coded at both of those nodes. It'll pull that out for me so I can now focus and see, is there actually data there? What could it have been my bias sneaking through? If there is data, what let me take it to that next level and see if there are any patterns or trends.
Hmm.
You can also do this if you've used attributes. So this is where I could also set something up for what did my male participants from the town of Straits say about a particular issue, depending on the attributes that I've created. We also have a matrix coding query and crosstabs in the quantitative world. So that I could either look for the intersection of a number of different nodes or attributes and nodes if I wish. This example, I've created a row for each age group, and each column represented a different facet for the natural environment. And what I did is when I ran this, NVivo initially found all of the references that appeared at each intersection. So I've got initially a matrix of the number of references. If I double click on any one of the cells, it will open up and show me the actual data behind that number. And then again from there, I can click on the link in the in what could become the node and it would bring me right back to my original data. So I'm never more than 3 clicks away from my original data. What the matrix shows in the cells, I do have options. Initially, it is number of references, but I can show things such as number of words coded, number of sources, number of nodes. I can also do a row percentage or column percentage. Row percentage simply is looking at all of the data coded at a given row, what percentage is represented by a particular cell. And the same thing is true for the columns. With all of the data coded at a given column, what percentage is represented by a given cell. And when you do generate a matrix, it also generates a chart, so that there'll be a tab there that you could look at this information in the form of a chart, and be able to export that chart if you wish. You can also export the matrix itself out to Excel. So if you wanted to do some further work with it quantitatively, statistically, or bring it into SPSS or such, you can do that as well. And the last of the coding queries I wanted to just introduce was the coding comparison query. And this allows you to compare the of two coders or two groups of nodes that you wish to include. You can choose the sources that you wish to include, and it can generate for you a kappa coefficient for inter-rater reliability. It could show you a percentage agreement or disagreement, or it can do both, as you see in this example. If there's a particular row that is of interest, if I double click on that row, it will actually open up the source associated with that row, and it will turn on the coding stripe for what my whole team or group has done, and then it will turn on substripes for the people that I've included in the comparison query. And in this case, I picked out the source and the coding stripes. I could then at that point add stripes for other team members
Mm-hmm.
to see how they fit into that process.
Let me ask you, where are the names of the coders? Where are those entered, or are you logging in somehow?
You log in, even when you're using your standalone, you have the opportunity when you're coming in down in the lower left-hand corner, it will show initials, and if they're not yours, if you simply come up to where it says File and Options, you have the ability under the General tab to change the name and initials.
I see.
And if people are sharing a computer, you also have the option for a checkbox here of prompt for user on launch, so that each time you open up.
Is there any way to password protect a file?
Yes, there is. When you're working with a particular project, if you go to File and Info and Project Properties, there is a password option here for read and write and read only.
Okay. And let me ask you a question about NVivo server.
Mm-hmm.
Are there, just generally, are there specific server requirements for running that?
There are they have iterated the requirements, so that server is a piece of software that you'll put out there, but your users will still need access to NVivo
Okay,
on
because
their computers.
I'm just not that we necessarily do off the bat, but in the future, I'm wondering Do you know offhand, is that something that could tie into an Active Directory list of users, or how would that work with authentication?
To the best of my knowledge, and what they do is that the whoever is the administrator or people working as the administrators add users to it. So theoretically, there may be a way to migrate a list. I cannot say that for 100% sure, but they
Hmm.
do come in through an administrator. And then from there, they would be able to access, and it does use Windows credentials
Okay.
to certify.
Hmm.
Let me swap back here. A couple of other things. Let me just now, just so that you know that there are other resources. For example, if you have faculty members who are teaching qualitative research, there's actually right now the NVivo Teacher's Guide, which has with it pages for students, pages uh, for instructors. Right now, there's 5 modules, and you can download. Each module has its own project, and the modules deal with things such as working with PDFs, working with interviews, both a priori and emergent, working with video and audio data, and working with images.
Okay.
So that's there as a resource, and it's freely available on the QSR website. We also have a number of brown bag sessions, which are overviews, but they'll focus on certain tools that may be appropriate for specific situations: literature review, mixed methods, research team collaboration, social media, or even a more general 5 ways to get more from your studies.
And those are those run through GoToWebinar also, or?
Yes, they are, and
Okay.
these are freely available. They're overviews such as this, and we run at least 3 of them a month, and they're on the training and events calendar.
Okay.
Yep. Again, depending, I know that some of the people you're working with have free trials, so we certainly do have the 30-day free trial full working version. We do e-demos for classes and teams as well,
Hmm.
and educational pricing is available.
Okay.
And again, on the website, we have the NVivo Education Center with how-to videos and recorded webinars that we have, as well as we offer fee-based training, open workshops and on-site training, face-to-face and online. And we do have consultation options if you have faculty or students that are involved in a specific project and might need some consulting to get them over a speed bump.
Okay. So in the screenshot up at the top right, I see NVivo for Mac. So do you have a fully functional Mac version?
We have a Mac version. It does not mirror NVivo 10 at this time.
Okay.
Right now, it is freely available for download. There's a public beta version available that will be available on through, I want to say, through the end of this month. Although if people the beta shuts down, but towards the beginning of June, we will be having a retail version. It has limited features at this point, but more are planned. There's a roadmap for it to be added over time.
Okay.
And just some upcoming trainings that we have. Um, and in this case, for the people at your organization, Judith Eastbrook is our contact person here at our Burlington, Mass office.
Okay. I'm just writing this down. And so is she technical also, or is she sales?
She's sales.
Okay. Got it.
Have our at our corporate headquarters, we have our tech and IT people, so that we do have resources that, as appropriate, we can call upon them to lend a hand.
Is if instructors here were using it in class and students needed to access the software, is there a facility for students to call for assistance, or they would go through us and we go to you?
Basically, what they could do is they would be able to. Typically, they'll email support,
Hmm.
and then support can get back to them.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay. Well, I do want to be respectful of your time, and we've hit the top of the hour, but are there any last minute questions that I can answer for you?
Not that I can think of now, but I'm going to take all the info that I got and I'm going to talk with the other people here. And so you recorded this, you're going to send that to us?
Yes, I can. I can share a Dropbox folder with you.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Okay,
All
yeah, thank you so much for this.
for your time, and I look forward to hopefully having a chance to chat with you again.
Likewise. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye now.
Bye.